Hello and welcome to Setting Up Projectiles. In this video we are going to arrange that when we click the fire button we get a log to say that we're firing, so that all the code is there. We're also going to have this massive 1 by 1 by 1 meter projectile that we can drop into the world, ready for our firing, which will happen in the lecture after this one. So see you in there. Okay, so remembering back to our iterative development cycle, we spent quite a lot of time there on the tank and the barrel movement. It's by far, it's far from perfect, but let's move on for the moment, because the least fun thing about this game, in my opinion, right now, is that we can't fire. So let's do a little more with the controls and set up the firing system. So what I want to do is firstly talk about the basic architecture of that. What's going to happen is we're going to bind some input in the settings, and then we're going to, inside the blueprint for the tank, we are going to bind the fire event under input setup here over to, from the input to a method that we will create in C++ called fire, and then that method we will call and we'll take it from there. So let's start by getting you to set up that overall structure, because it'll be a great recap for you. Nothing complicated here, no real code to write, and then we'll move on from there. So your challenge is as follows. Set up the firing code. Create a fire method on the tank. Make it blueprint callable, so we can call it from blueprint. Bind input and wire up in blueprint. And then test by logging to the console from C++. You might want to copy one of your previous, or move one of your previous log messages, so that we don't have too many log messages hanging around. Okay, so go ahead, pause the video, see if you can wire that up now, so that when you click, say, the left mouse button, you get a log in the console to say that the tank has fired. Welcome back. Let's take a look at this from the beginning. So project settings and input allows me to come along and bind an action. It's an action because it's on or off. The action's simply going to be called fire. I'll move through this quickly because you've seen all this before. Left mouse button. Okay, so we have an action. Fantastic. Into the tank blueprint. This is no longer just camera input binding, so let's just rename it. It's called input binding in general. Under the input setup event graph, that all makes sense to me. Let's go ahead and find this event, make sure that that input that we just set up worked, search for fire, and there's your action. Now we can't bind it to the C++ event just yet because we don't have one. So I'll just save the blueprint and go over to C++. So on the tank itself, after AMAT, in fact I'm going to move AMAT below the setters just because I think setters kind of feel like they come first. AMAT, now I'm going to make my U function blueprint callable. In fact, rather than typing, I'm going to copy that one up there. It doesn't need a category because this is not going to be something that we're going to be choosing on the right-hand side like one of these properties on the right over here. So we don't need a category right now. And then it's going to be void. Fire doesn't need to return anything. Fire, and it doesn't need to take anything either. It's always just going to fire in the direction that the barrel's currently pointing. So that is pretty self-explanatory. Let's go ahead and implement this method now. So after AMAT, we're going to have fire, which of course needs the class name here. And then just a little more jiggery-pokery with the syntax, and we're nearly there. All right, so where are we going to get this log message from? Well, we could type it, but that's a pain. Why don't we search all of our project for UE log? This would be a good time to clear up and make sure we only have logs where we want them. Here's one. We get the time in seconds, and then we talk about an aiming solution being found. We don't need that log anymore, so I'm going to cut that one with Control X. I'm going to delete the other one for the moment and just leave a comment, no aim solution found. Or I just take the whole else out, actually. It's a waste of time there. Okay, so just a quick modification to the tank aiming component there. The main reason I went over here was to grab that UE log. While I've got it in the paste buffer, let's go and use it straight away and then repurpose it. We get the time. At a particular time, we say tank fires. Now, we could verify which tank that is, but I think it's going to be pretty obvious unless we get more log messages than we expect. We don't need to be logging out the tank name, in my opinion. All right, I'm going to do another search for UE log and make sure that we only have it where we want it. There it is in the fire method. There it is on the get controlled tank. I think that's a reasonable warning. Most of the time, this won't show because we will have a controlled tank. And same there. Okay, great. So I think that's all fine. Let's go ahead and compile up our code. And then over here in the tank blueprint, once that C++ code is fired, we should find that from here, we can find ourselves a fire method. It's not there right now because the compilation has failed. What have we done? Oh, it must have a category. So me saying we don't need a category, arbitrarily, it does need a category. So I'm just going to call the category firing. Doesn't seem to make sense for a blueprint callable, but why not? If that's what it wants, there's a little lesson for us all. So let's go ahead and recompile the code. And again, I'm going to see how good the hot load is here. I'm going to search for fire and see if when compilation finishes at the bottom right, if this becomes available in the list. I highly doubt it. I think that list has already been populated by the editor. But we shall see, just for fun. No, it's not there now, so let's see how much we have to do while we're here, just to see. Fire like that's no good. Let's just try coming over here and going fire. There you go. So the minimum you need to do to refresh it is redrag a execution node line. There it is. Tank is the target. Now, just not brush over that too quickly. Target is self. That is okay because we are the tank. It's a tank blueprint. It's based on the tank class, and it'll be calling a method on the tank. Yeah, but that's not, it's worth thinking about what the target should be. Great. So let's compile this blueprint. It compiled okay and save it. I'm going to save everything just in case something crashes and play. Now, checking the log carefully, nothing is being logged at the moment, whereas if I look at something and then click the left mouse button, there you go, tank fires at 5.6 seconds into the game, and again at 9, there you go, and you can even see how fast I can click the mouse here. Not that fast, about 10 times less than 10 times a second. All right, anyway, that is the skeleton of the tank firing. I hope it makes sense, it's very simple. Now we need to actually get on and make some firing happen. So I think for the rest of this video, let's focus on just creating a feasible projectile and then firing it out. So now let's think about the projectile that we're actually going to fire. We need to set this up. It's going to have a C++ class because it's actually going to have a fair amount of stuff on it. We're going to need to control the launch blast, the smoke when it comes out the barrel, the impact blast when it hits the ground, the explosion force which moves the tank that it lands near, all that type of stuff. So it will need a class. So my challenge to you, it's not a pause the video challenge, it's just a quick think challenge, is what class would we base a projectile on? So we're going to make a new C++ class right now. The question is what? What is it? Is it a none? Probably not. Is it a character? Well, it doesn't need all of the responsibility of a character that's listed there. How about a pawn? Well, because we're not giving it any, we're not possessing it, neither us or the AI are possessing this projectile or sending any control inputs, it doesn't even need to be a pawn. It just needs to be an actor in the world. We're going to lob it, and it's just going to go and do its thing. So we're going to make a new actor. Going to simply call the class projectile. Oh, fun. Okay, great. So a class called projectile based on actor. So once that class is made, we're just going to leave it as a template for the moment, and we will fill in information into it like some events. We may have some broadcast launch event type things, and we'll have, as I said, some explosion handling and all sorts of things. And the amount of damage it does, all of that will be specified on the projectile later. But for now, let's just focus on getting our blueprint set up. So we have a tank here, and we could put its projectile blueprint here in the tank folder, or we could put it in the blueprints folder. I'm not really precious. I think I'm going to put it in the tank folder, just because the rest of the tank related bits are there. So what we need to do then, of course, is make ourselves a new blueprint class based on the projectile. So it's all very well having the C++ class, we'll code all the behavior in there, but we're going to need a physical projectile with a mesh and all those other nice things the designer, or you with your designer hat on, are going to need to tweak. So you click on the projectile under the C++ classes and you say, create blueprint class based on projectile. That's what we want. Okay, so we need projectile underscore BP. And we create the blueprint class. Tell it it's in tank. Just check it when in the right place. There it is, projectile blueprint. Great. And there it is. We have a projectile blueprint. We actually already have ourselves a little sphere on here. It's a little visible sphere. It's 1 by 1 by 1 Unreal units, which are centimeters. So let's just make it huge for the moment. Let's just make this guy a whole 100 centimeters, a whole meter, so we can really see where it is in the world. So I've just scaled up this projectile right now, and I'm going to drop it in the world and just make sure it's truly visible. And there it is. No one's going to miss a 1 by 1 meter projectile. So that's good enough for now for this video. It's been long enough. We have 2 new classes in this video, a projectile class and I can't remember what the other one we made was. No, we don't. We have 1 new class, which is the projectile. We've also added some code to the tank. And remember, quite a useful way of working out what has changed in a particular video is you can save everything. In fact, it's probably safer to close everything, even including Visual Studio, because it has some lock files. And you can go to your source control system, and of course you just go and look at the uncommitted changes there, and it can be a pretty cool way of getting a recap. A lot of these things you can't see, but you could see that there's some new action mappings in the default input. We made a little bit of change to the UMAP. I don't know why. It's binary. You can't see the difference. I'm not sure what changed there. Then you can see what we did in the CPP, the fire method, the aiming component. We took out some logs, etc. So this is a pretty cool way of recapping what you did. So it just remains to commit your work, and I'll see you in the next video.